Hey everybody, my name's Andres,
I'm Scott.
And I'm Abe.
and this is Between Two Stands, a classical musician's podcast about classical music.
Do we have music to talk about, guys?
Boy, do
I think
we.
so. Well, we're interviewing our two of our soloists for the Don Quixote concert, so we could probably talk about that with them, right?
Yeah, that's the idea. Yeah, Wei
Is that
Yu
is that how
and
this works?
I don't know, man. I don't know. That sounds outrageous.
What?
Yeah,
We talk
but
about music?
friend of the show, Wei Yu, and newcomer Eric Nowlin, our principal cello and viola, are going to be joining us because they are performing Don Quixote.
yeah,
Hey,
very.
Tone Poem.
Abe, have you ever played Don Quixote?
I have learned it for auditions, and I played a chamber music arrangement of it by Laszlo Varga. That's it's a sextet version. So
It's a. I played it once before.
no,
Obviously, not the major part, but it's. Have you played it before in the orchestra, Scott?
No, I haven't. It's
Yeah.
funny that there's a sextet version because there are 6 horn parts, just horn parts.
Yeah.
So I love
Yeah.
that they boiled the whole orchestra down to 6. That's great.
Yeah.
It's a really cool. Strauss always does these stories so well. He gives these themes to different characters and different objects even. But this one's really evocative. You got well, Wei and Eric are going to do an incredible job. And Wei represents Don Quixote, and the viola, Eric, represents Sancho Panza. And every time the character comes out, they play that same, the same theme, and it really is like an opera without the singers in a way.
I also hear that they're going to do a reading of the book before the concert.
The whole book.
The whole book.
How
It's a
early do you think
pre-concert.
that?
I think it starts at 1. I think it starts at 1 p.m. and then the doors open at 7:30, right? So
Oh, they're going at 1.5 speed. If you,
okay.
Yeah.
that's
And then we
that's
can
one
see
thing
what Strauss missed from the book, right?
That's one thing I
Right.
think Strauss actually did a really good job with in his tone poems. Every tone poem tells like a specific story, and you can really follow the arc. And it's almost like the soundtrack to a story you're not watching, but you can hear the soundtrack. It's
Yeah.
he's a genius with that. It's really a
Yeah.
great way to follow a story that and to music. What else is happening in that concert?
Oh, well, we've got Thibaudet playing Ravel Piano Concerto in G.
Love that piece.
Yeah. And
He's
Thibaudet
always
is
a fun guy to have.
Oh my goodness.
He's a character.
Well, last time he was here, we were just talking. Last time he was here, he was playing because it was during the pandemic, and we could only have small ensembles. Didn't he do? Abe, did you play with him?
Yeah, I played the Franck Piano Quintet with him. And I mean, it's like, first off, Thibaudet is one of the great soloists of our time, right?
Absolutely. Yeah,
And
especially stuff like Ravel or Franck.
and just, it's like one of those sort of musical experiences that I think for anybody like in my position, you're not going to say no when you're asked to play with them. Right?
Yeah.
And it turned out to be just one of the most memorable musical experiences probably of my career.
Wow.
So it's, like way up there. It was a real honor to be a part of that. And I think everybody, should really just jump at the chance to see him perform live.
I actually played with him when I was I was a guest musician with the LA Phil, and we played Age of Anxiety by Bernstein, which is so different than, it just shows his versatility, like he's just like, he can get in these different characters, Ravel and Bernstein are pretty different in terms of like, what's expected of the musician, and he just does them really well.
I mean, it's interesting too, because that's not actually a concerto. It's like Bernstein's Symphony No. 2, The Age of Anxiety, and it just happens to be kind of a piano concerto.
It is kind of exactly. Right.
But yeah, that's one of those, like, don't meet your heroes unless it's Tipa Day. Then it's okay.
Right. He definitely looked like a hero when he was driving this McLaren car to rehearsals. I was like, wow. Like, man, who is that guy?
When we were rehearsing the Frunk, he had a mask with like an LED lighting in it that he could program to say different things, and he really wanted to program it to say DSO, but I think he ended up just wearing the DSO mask.
Ah, bummer.
Yeah.
It actually like didn't filter out anything. It just looked cool.
Yeah.
It's an LED mask that looks like a mouth moving every time he talks. That would be incredible.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're looking forward to interviewing Wei and Eric and having Eric on the show for the first time. It'll be kind of cool to see how they, prepare for a gig like this, because it's kind of like a concerto, but also not. That's kind of the interesting part about this piece. It's kind of like a hybrid.
Well, plus the fact that, how often do you get to hear a viola soloist role?
Right.
It's a nice thing.
Far and few between.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
let's get to the interview, right?
Let's do it.
Welcome, Wei. Welcome, Eric.
Thank you all so much.
Joining us.
Thank you for having us.
So should we start out with the first standard question? Like the what is on your stand? I don't know who wants to go first.
I actually currently have something relatively relevant. It's the music for Detroit Symphony Orchestra next week. It's on my stand that I have, of course, looked at.
Wait. Is this for Don Quixote? Or sorry?
No, this is for
what's next?
Beethoven.
Week.
Beethoven. Oh, nice, cool. I obviously know what's coming up. Yeah.
I don't
for our
think
listeners,
we're playing Beethoven next week, but
no.
But
Beethoven 9, I think, is in a couple weeks.
Oh, a couple weeks, right.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm all screwed up then.
Yeah. What about you, Wei? What do you got working? What are you working on?
I got the same folder, gets going, and of course Don Quixote.
Oh yeah. So that's a good segue. So, okay, first of all, you guys have known each other for a long time, right? Right? You, Wei and Eric, have you guys like known each other before the orchestra?
Yes. I'm trying to think. Wei, did we meet in school first?
Yes, I think we overlapped at Juilliard when we did, I think, a master's together.
Okay. Yeah. But I don't think I knew you that well in school. I really got to know you more when we went off to Marlboro Music Festival. So I think that's kind of where we actually got to know each other a little bit better.
So for some of our listeners, I think, Wei, you joined the orchestra at the same time I did, I believe. Was that 2015?
Yes, I started officially January 2015.
Right. And Eric, when did you officially join the orchestra? I forget the year.
2016.
Okay, so it's just a year apart, and but you had this history in Marlboro. And for those who don't know what the Marlboro Festival is, like, what was it to you? And I mean, it's such a great institution, but like, what specifically for the two of you, like, other than meeting each other?
I will say Marlboro is a boot camp for chamber music.
Is it tough?
I won't say tough. I think it's a very intense way of learning chamber music and learning how not only how you play a piece, more like how you rehearse, how you study a piece from different perspective, different angle, and then learn how to get along with each other in a small ensemble where you see day in and day out for 2-3 weeks at a time. So
well, that's one of the challenges. I feel like that's one of the challenges with chamber music too, is like everyone is, it's kind of like everyone's equal in terms of their voice. So like, you have to really, pick and choose what you want to say or what you want to comment on, which probably, I feel like that's a skill in and of itself, like we've all been with that person who just has too many comments or doesn't have enough, so I feel like, were you guys ever in a group together there?
I don't think so. So one thing that was interesting there was that I actually ended up playing a lot, like an inordinate amount, with Wei's teacher, David Sawyer. Abe, did you study with him, or was that Peter?
I did.
Okay, it was Sawyer. Okay, so both of you guys. Yeah. I don't know why the older, what they call senior members, of which I guess I would be one now, basically choose which of the young people they want to play with. And David kind of went in there at the beginning was like, okay, I'm just going to play with these people all summer. So it's like, okay, well. So I loved playing with him. And Andres, to your comment about talking, I'll distinctly remember one rehearsal where we had some seriously chatty members. And I don't know how appropriate this is for this podcast, but
let it rip.
Oh, dude, yeah.
David
Please.
David Sawyer said, "There's just too much fucking talking all the time." and that was the end of the talking, which was actually kind of a nice thing. So
sometimes, man, I mean, sometimes that's all you need to say, just like something that's very concise,
It was.
And apparently unforgettable.
As a matter of fact.
Yeah, exactly.
So
that's so fun. I love hearing stories about Sawyer, because most of the famous stories about him in rehearsals and stuff like that are like these outbursts, right? That are very pointed and extremely funny, at least in hindsight. And I remember one of my first lessons with him at school, I was terrified that he was just going to yell at me, right? Just absolutely terrified. And I walk in the room and he turns around and he's got like pink and white sprinkles from his donut all over his mouth. and because he stopped at Dunkin' Donuts on the way in, from New York. And then he just says, "Oh, come on in." Right. And I was just totally like, my mood went from completely terrified to, oh, this is going to be okay.
Did he sound like Cookie Monster or something? Because that's what I'm hearing. Same voice?
Little bit, yeah. Deep, gravelly. Maybe not as unhinged, but
Right. Yeah. So we got Don Quixote coming up, which features you guys, and just really, really beautiful orchestration, and first of all, pretty rare to have like the viola up there, which is pretty awesome. It's gonna be really awesome to hear you. Just wanted to know what this piece kind of means for you and for your instrument. Whoever wants to. Wait.
I'll let Wei go as the primary character here.
Well, I think to me, Don Quixote is a piece. It's on the top of my to-do list. It's one of the pieces I always want to play. So I'm just thrilled when Eric Nowlin asked me, and Eric had this fantastic opportunity to work with DSO, to work with Yader. I think I'm just absolutely thrilled. Couldn't ask for a better opportunity. So I'm absolutely looking forward to it.
So you never played it before?
Not in this complete sense of setting. So Don Quixote has several variations, which is often asked in a principal cello audition scenario: theme, variation 1, 2, 5, and finale. So just right now I have all the jigsaw puzzles. I just have to make them all put together.
Are those specific variations that you practiced for the auditions and everything? Do they hold a special place for you, or are you kind of like, okay, I already know those, now I get to explore this other aspect of the piece more? Or is it like those are the parts and you love them because they're so great? Or maybe both?
I think both. I think those are very both musically and technically challenging. Those often asked excerpt or so-called excerpts variations. That also is feel like a lens, a bridgeway to the multi-personality or kind of the psychological change of the character take place. It's kind of try to get into the mindset of this so-called crazy man. Different angle of personality or different angle of human expression. So I think when I'm practicing, it's go down deeper and explore more possibility, colors, expressions. Those are taking place when I, try to approach the piece. So it's always fun and opportunity to explore. That's for sure.
I'm really excited to hear this. Even hearing you talk about it, like I'm just so excited to hear both of you play. I want to just take a second and ask Andres, are you getting that into like the windmill role?
Oh, dude, absolutely, man. I mean, it's the dragons, right? I mean, I'm channeling my inner windmill dragon. So, yeah, absolutely. I've been working out. I've been working out my right arm a lot. So it's going to be very, very windy.
It's going to blow me away.
Yeah, exactly.
Just the right arm?
Just the right arm. Just the right arm.
Yeah. Balance it out.
What about you, Eric? What preparations or have you played this piece before, first of all?
So I have played this piece before, but not as Sancho Panza. So I played this when I was a member of Toronto Symphony, sitting second chair there. So the principal was fabulous. So I got great experience hearing her play that part. But it's nice to be able to do it myself now. And look, this piece is it's a great musical work. I mean, first of all, just that in and of itself. My part is not nearly as involved as Wei's. I mean, he's essentially playing a cello concerto. I'm the sidekick here. I'm the Robin to Wei's Batman. So, Kung Fu Panza. So
I like that.
It's a little bit of a different role here, and it's kind of comical. So it's fun actually to have a role that you're supposed to kind of noodle around a little bit and have fun with it. I'm kind of looking forward to that. So, but yeah, exciting piece. It'll be fun.
Do you find that so that's obviously different than a viola concerto would be, but for your own preparation or for like the fulfillment that you get from the piece, like you said, it's a great work. I agree with that. Obviously, I mean, Strauss, us horn players, the fact that we're not the main character is a little bit weird, but I guess we'll allow it. But for your role, backing up in this piece, how do you approach that differently than like a standard concerto, a viola concerto?
Well, there is another piece that's somewhat similar to this, which is Berlioz's Harold in Italy, where it's not really a concerto per se. It's more of like the viola's a character that's prominently featured but is kind of integrated into the orchestra. So it's a little bit similar to that, where you have these moments where you kind of pop out and have your say, and then you subsume yourself back into the texture. So I guess in terms of preparation, you just kind of look at the score and figure out who you're playing with and what kind of dialogue you're having, with the solo violin or with the cello or, the oboe or whatever. You kind of figure out how you as a character fit in there. And obviously, typically not always the primary one like the cello would be. And so you kind of modify how you play accordingly. I'd say it's a little bit more like chamber music, a featured role in chamber music rather than strictly as a solo role.
So, and wait, you said, oh, sorry, go ahead, Abe.
I was just going to ask, is there something about your individual parts that you would want the audience to listen for, that even we might not know about, that would be interesting to sort of share with everybody?
Well, I think it's interesting you mentioned that. I think I remember reading about right after his composition finished by Strauss, he refused to write any program notes or guidelines for audience to understand the piece. He said, music itself explain everything. You don't need extra notes. Later on, of course, he adding some notes. So it's very interesting how he's such a genius in terms of narrating the music, and he is absolutely a master for orchestration and acoustic effect, especially showcasing in this piece. In terms of preparation, I think, like Eric mentioned, you just have to know in and out about the score. A lot of it to do with dialogue between instruments, like the dialogue between concertmaster and solo cello, and with clarinet or bassinet, all you name it, all different individual instrument representing a different character or different situation. Even talking about my own cello part, I see a lot of layers of like roles I'm playing. A lot of times to do, of course, this like nightly character of Don Quixote itself. But also oftentimes I see this part is like, oh, I'm doubling with the entire cello tutti. So I'm more from solo center stage back to my normal role as principal cello. So it's the gear changing constantly make it much more dramatic and much more theatrical and more fun.
So you said something interesting earlier too about how like you're trying to get into his psyche, Don Quixote's psyche. So how do you convey that when you perform it? Like what's an example of how you would maybe perform that?
I think sometimes I have to put my mindset to little similar to opera singer, or even an actor. So you have to exaggerate a lot of expression. You have to also use the instrument as humanly possible, close to human voice. A lot to do with like not only a beautiful melody, such as Dulcinea's beautiful, heavenly, beautiful melody, comes to the dialogue between Don Quixote himself and Sancho Panza. There's a lot of talking, like David Sawyer always say, you play like the way you talk, you tell the story. Note by note, it's like you mean something in the words. So I think that it's very operatic. Look at the score, it's a very operatic way of writing. Yeah.
That makes sense. I mean, Strauss wrote so many fantastic operas as well. So I see where you're going with that. On another line, we have a question that was a little bit famous in our first episode, which was what composer would you like to punch in the face? Which we can't, like in the Will Smith spirit of things, I feel like we can't really advocate that anymore. But is there a composer that like irks you, like maybe that writes for your instrument in a way that you just don't appreciate or doesn't understand, or is there where is Strauss on this spectrum? Like we've talked very highly of him, so maybe he's up here, but who would be not there? You don't have to answer. You can say they're all wonderful, and I'll accept it. But
thinking you since you mentioned about Strauss, I think Abe will agree with me. The way he writes, very difficult passage for cello. It's actually very cellistically comfortable. Will you say that, Abe?
Yeah. It lies well on the instrument.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I
So
don't
you
know
would-
about
so-
the other side of spectrum. So
Yeah, sure.
Eric, I
is
know,
that
I know you got
viola?
an opinion. Eric's stewing over there. I know that there's someone that he doesn't like out there.
All right. So first of all, no. Actually, a composer, if you're talking about playability, a composer who is actually one of my favorite composers in terms of music, but in terms of playing the music, I'd like to punch in the face is Prokofiev.
Oh, yeah.
He has some unbelievably awkward passages in there where you're like, what were you thinking? I mean, this is like basically unplayable. So
Yeah.
in terms of a composer where it's just in terms of the playability is really excruciating, that would be one that I would go for there.
I completely
I
understand.
would I would see that fight. I would pay for that fight, pay-per-view.
I don't know.
I think another composer kind of writes some really nasty stuff, but I'm not going to punch his face. I'm going to just kiss his face. It's Mozart.
Okay. Really?
Mozart?
Yeah. Mozart writes some really uncomfortably noodling, awkward passages, but you know what? He's genius. I can still kiss his face.
Yeah.
I understand that.
Yeah.
Abe, do you, like, this is interesting because I feel like on horn, Mozart and Strauss both wrote in a way that also lies on the instrument very well. It was very clear that he understood the principles that it took to play the instrument. So I'm hearing that Mozart, not so much for the cello. He didn't care. He was going to make it difficult for you.
I mean,
Maybe.
I think there are some composers who either they weren't necessarily trying to make it playable, right? They just sort of said, this is the music, now you figure it out, you know?
Gotcha.
I do, like, there are some really awkward passages in Mozart, and that's why I think a lot of, there's some really great excerpts on auditions, not just with the Don Quixote, but, Mozart 35, we'll see 40, 41,
We're
Mary
playing
Figaro
one of them next
overture.
week.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. That's next week.
Oh, is that what
Hey, that's on his stand. So another really interesting thing that we're going to get to hear firsthand is your guys' instruments are have such a storied history. Can you guys kind of just briefly tell us about, like the story of your instruments at the same time?
Go for it.
Okay. The cello I'm currently playing is owned by the DSO. It's made by the luthier from Roman school from Rome. The name is David Tekler. I think he's from the Germanian origin. He made the cello, according to the date, is 1720.
Wow.
A fantastic instrument. And he also, the instrument also attached to a name. It's Bedetti cello. Bedetti is named after Jean Bedetti, who used to be the former principal cello of the Boston Symphony Orchestra. So he used that particular cello, I think it's early 1900 until 1930s and 40s. So I have this old picture of him playing this particular cello in my phone. It's very interesting provenance about the instrument.
And what about after that? In the gap that you've had it and the 1930s or 40s, where was it then?
I couldn't trace this specifically. I think it's somewhere in the States. Someone owns it, being constantly played as well. So I'm very grateful for Ann Parson and Eric Nowlin's support. They are really the driving force and support to get this instrument and loan it to me. So I'm forever in debt for that.
What about you, Eric? What about your instrument?
So this is another instrument that was bought for the Detroit Symphony for me to play on, which I am exceptionally lucky to be able to do. It's viola by J.B. Guadagnini, made in Milan. there was a whole family of Guadagnini. He's probably the most famous. And he was a rather peripatetic maker. He moved all over the place. And so in this particular city, this is where he made a lot of really great instruments. And this instrument's a little unusual in that Guadagnini's violas typically are on the smaller side. When he was making violas, violas kind of go in and out of fashion. Sometimes people like smaller ones, and then people like bigger ones, and then they like smaller ones, and then they like bigger ones. And through the hundreds of years, it's kind of gone yo-yoed around like some sort of weird weight loss regimen. Anyway,
like the Macarena,
yeah.
in and out.
Except it was only one time in. Like that's never.
I don't know about you, dude. I still love it.
You think it's the Macarena's making a comeback for Andres?
I still love it. Watch.
It's like
going back to the bar mitzvahs in middle school.
You're gonna see it at all the clubs.
I actually played that on the viola.
Oh.
So anyway, so this instrument was made in 1757. And my train of thought completely derailed off the track.
Sorry, Macarena. Wait,
so it was originally made smaller. It was made smaller, and then in the 40s, there was a shop in London that actually added wood to the top and back and to the ribs and made it into a larger instrument. And that's extremely uncommon. Typically, old violas were made really big. They were called tenor violas. And so many old violas now have actually been cut down to make them much more playable. But this one was actually made bigger, which is very unusual and extremely difficult to do, you know.
I mean, you could risk kind of losing its, the sound, right? I mean, that's a pretty high risk.
Well, and it's kind of like a haircut. It's easy to cut off more, but it's not as easy to put it
to
back.
Add on.
So so I mean, it's a much bigger operation to try to add wood onto an instrument as opposed to cutting it out.
Is there like how did your guys' instruments get to the States, or how do a lot of those instruments come from Europe and get here? Is it through, do people purchase it, or do people, how does that normally happen in terms of just how they get here?
Well, how long do you have?
We got all day, man.
No, we don't.
I mean, these instruments are hundreds of years old, and so they go all over the world, and are owned by many different people. These days, obviously, it's a global network where people source instruments. One thing kind of tangentially related to your question is that I think Wei can probably
weigh in on
confirm is that you feel with these instruments that you're a custodian, right? You are one of 20 people that have played on this thing, and there's going to be 20 more people after you that play on it. So it's interesting that you feel like you're kind of a caretaker, and you're playing on it for this small percentage of its life. And that's kind of, for me, that's kind of a neat notion that I'm one of a string of musicians that's playing on this. And so partly to answer your question, sometimes the musicians are the ones that bring the instrument somewhere. You'll have a musician that started in France and then moved to North or South America or Asia or something, and then the instrument's there, and then someone buys it there and it stays there or comes back, so instruments kind of move all over the place, not just in terms of who's buying and selling them, but also in terms of the musicians, that travel, for concerts and for their career.
those lines, if I can just ask one more question for both of you, and maybe we'll start with Wei. Do you feel like this is a Harry Potter situation where like the wand chooses the wizard? Are you looking for certain aspects in that cello that just match your playing in a certain way? Or is it that the quality of the instrument is such that any player would notice the advantage that it would have? Or is it something else?
I think a little bit both. Normally, I think according to luthier who introduced this cello to me, it takes up to 2 years to really fully understand the instrument you are using. So I think to me, at the time when I first got the opportunity to play the instrument, I have to prepare for the concerto, Elgar concerto with DSO in 2 weeks. Within this condensed 2 weeks preparation, it's like a speed test. It's like every day I just have to figure out how to use the instrument and discover colors, the playability, and what's the limitation. That was a very interesting experience, exploring the possibility in such a condensed amount of time. The instrument taught me has so much dynamic and color range, which is unbelievable, especially in a big concert hall like DSO Orchestra Hall. It's just phenomenal in terms of projection. You can play the soft possibility color and still be heard because it has such a core to the sound from the last row, and then also carry on full, rich, warm tone, being very soloistic instrument. And then I use very often this cello play chamber music, especially with Eric now these days. And in the chamber music situation, is also provide a very good bass, and also have a complete transparent, velvety, rich quality on the top. So the color spectrum is quite amazing. It's like partnership 50-50. I put in 50,
sure.
Cello give me another 50.
Would you agree with that, Eric? Is that how you feel as well?
Well, you see the way that it happens. We started playing chamber music, and then Wei's playing on this fabulous cello that just projects so much. It was like an arms race. I'm just like, all right, I've got to get something to compete with this thing. So here we go.
18th century instrument or bust.
That's right. That's right. I mean, there's, I think probably from any objective standpoint, you could say that these two instruments, I mean, you ask any string player and they'll say, yeah, that's a great instrument. But, there's so many factors that go into, especially for viola and cello, because they come in wildly different sizes, particularly viola. Different approaches to playing. Some people like that an instrument will have like tons of projection. Someone else will want more of an emphasis on warmth and sound. Some people like, that they can get around the instrument easier, and other people would rather have a deeper sound with a bigger instrument and don't care as much about being able to get around. And so I think there's a lot of kind of personal aspects to it. I did have a Harry Potter moment with my bow, however. I did. And I was actually trying out different violas, and someone had put a bow there, just in case you didn't bring a bow. Well, yeah, right. and so I saw this bow, and I knew it was quite a nice bow, and I was like, don't play on it. You're gonna don't go there. Right.
Yeah. Temptation.
So I was very good. I didn't, and at the very end, I was like, whatever. I'll try this thing. We'll see what happens. I pick it up and I play like literally 2 seconds. I'm
wow,
this is
that's amazing.
Amazing, yeah. So that was definitely my Harry Potter moment.
What can you describe what the difference is? Like why is one better than another?
Well, I think it's, you pick it up and immediately you feel the balance, you feel the way that it gets sound out of an instrument, you feel, the beauty of the sound, but also the agility of the stick, and you're just able to do a lot more things. And I tried a couple noodly excerpts that had always been trickier with my previous bow, and instantaneously it was, it's like, oh, it's not me. Good.
Well, it also has the feather of a mythical creature sort of worked into the stick, right?
That's right. Well, I mean, and that was the secret of
Phoenix.
this particular maker, was the dragon. Right? What is it? Dragon
Oh, yeah.
something. I
Dragon,
clearly
right.
have not been, reading my Harry Potter. Well, I will soon with my daughters, but anyway.
Well, look, we thank you guys so much, and we're really looking forward to hearing both of you play this piece, and obviously on the instruments that you're playing on. I'm really lucky I get to sit in between you two right now, so I get to hear these instruments and both of you play, just fabulously all the time. Before you go, we do have one quick question for you, and that is, is there something that you love about Detroit that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Go ahead, Wei.
Well, I think I'm very, very lucky to be working in Detroit and in Michigan. We have this world-class orchestra. We have also world-class support system to support the orchestra. So that's including administration team, patrons, board, directors, everybody. So I feel very privileged to be able to call Detroit my home, Michigan my home, have raised family here, and also especially looking back 2 years ago, pandemic, we are among one of the luckiest orchestra, keep music playing, and now we normally come back to normal. I just never take things for granted anymore. Say we play great music on stage, share with the audience, share with the community. Just absolutely thrilling. So it's just nice to be here.
Yeah.
So follow that, Eric.
Here. I was just going to say pizza.
Yeah, pizza. Hey, man, I love that. I love that.
You can stick with that.
Honestly, I agree with you.
One thing I did notice coming here, to be honest, and I came from Toronto, which is a very, very different city and a different country, but is it, and I think this applies to this orchestra too, is that the Detroit's got grit. And I love that. I saw all these people when I first came here wearing these shirts that said, like, Detroit's got hustle. And I was like, all right, whatever. But it's true. Like, the city's got this sense of, like, we got to make it on our own, and we will make it on our own. And not only that, but we're going to do it our own way. And I actually feel like the orchestra kind of lives with that spirit, Like, I feel like we've been, as Wei said, really lucky to be poised in the moment with the webcasting, when we truly needed to reach out to audiences. I feel like this orchestra is unafraid to take chances and do things differently and be innovative. And I feel like the city is kind of like that too. Like, just the position that the city is in at this point in time, people are kind of unafraid to get out there and make things happen. So I would say, aside from the pizza, that would be kind of my favorite thing about Detroit.
But sorry, in terms of the pizza, I think it quickly has become my favorite type of pizza. Honestly, I used to be like New York slice guy. I'm all about the squares now, so I have to agree with you on that.
All right, I'm glad I have a compatriot in that.
Yeah.
Thank you both so much. I am always looking forward to hearing you play, whether it's Don Quixote or anything else that we play. We're so fortunate to have you both leading these sections in the orchestra, and I hope everybody comes and hears Don Quixote. Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
Right.
That
Well,
was awesome.
thank you to Eric and Wei. It was a just amazing interview.
But mostly thank you to the three of us, because I think we really nailed it on that one.
I think it's really
Thank you, guys.
Thank me, guys.
Yes, thank me.
Thank me. Allow myself to introduce myself. Thank me.
So Don Quixote, I think, is probably the concert that it's one of the ones that I'm really looking forward to this month. But the week before, from the 12th through the 15th, we are playing Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, the great choral symphony with the Ode to Joy. That it's just, I think it's also, they were playing it. Isn't it the UN anthem? Am I crazy to think that? I think they were playing it for the French election for Macron when he won. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It's the Ode to Joy. You all know it. You all love it. I know it. I love it. I'm getting weird looks from Abe.
There's also
I don't know what
like
I'm talking about.
amazing, like the Ode to Joy is at the end, and everything before that is incredibly awesome. And it just, I feel like just the lead up to the Ode to Joy is what makes the Ode to Joy so great. You know what I mean?
Because that movement is like 25 minutes long, and everybody knows like 8 bars of it. They're like, I know that one.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I mean, there's a reason it's one of the most famous pieces ever.
Yeah,
Right.
and then there's also a premiere by Hannah Lash, who's one of actually Cheryl's, my wife's harp friends.
Really?
Who was also a composer. I think she teaches at Yale.
Nice.
Okay, so if I'm wrong about the anthem and you're wrong about her teaching at Yale, we'll be nailing it.
Yes, we're batting 1,000. 100% of the time we're wrong. 0% of the time.
Another good concert we're playing. Good one. This is a good one, guys. The other ones, we all know there are some concerts, not so much, but this is a good one. From the 26th through the 28th, we are playing Mozart Symphony number 39. And anytime you can hear a Mozart symphony, it's just like exquisite. And also on that is the St. George Violin Concerto number 1.
Yeah, it's going to be it's a great month of concerts.
Even though Scott doesn't like Mozart, you guys should still come check it out, because most everyone else likes Mozart.
I gotta say,
go to dso.org.
Yeah. Cut him off.
That's fair.
Joining us,
right.
everybody. See you next time.